Hey everybody, happy Friday. We made it through a week again, and I am so excited because we have every year the big IT Expo Super Show coming up February, Fort Lauderdale, and we really have some distinguished folks to chat about it. I'm super excited. I'll be there personally. Many of you will as well. So let's dive right in on this Friday afternoon. We'll start with the one and only Rich Durrani. Rich, how are you?
Great, Evan. Thrilled to be on your program. Really excited today.
Well, glad that you are here and you've been doing this for a while. Maybe introduce yourself, of course, IT Expo at TMC. And how many decades now are you in this game? I've lost track, Rich.
My father started the company, and this media company is 51 years ago, and I was
Wow.
putting stamps on envelopes at age 6. That is just got to do the math in my head real quick here. So 1972 is when I started working at this company. I started getting paid when I was 9. I'd go to the office, and I was working in the mailroom, and I was very lucky because I was fascinated by computers. And I told my dad while I was in high school, hey, let me computerize this place. And I was able to outsource my job to computers. And I no longer needed to lug bags of magazine and mail and all magazines and mail and all that stuff. And I was at that point I was hooked, and I said, "Oh my God, automation is amazing! Look at what it can do!" And we took this media company towards technology and call center and voice over IP. And then we launched a show called IT Expo in 1999. This is now the 25th year, 41st event, and it is an event that started in telecommunications in 1999, but now it's evolved into cybersecurity, um, future of work, IoT. We basically have taken this IT Expo show and we've turned it into a tech super show. And the reason we've done it is because companies kept asking for more and more technology that they could use to make their businesses better. And we wanted a single place, a single venue where the entire buying team could come in the first quarter of the year, make their buying decisions on the things they need to either resell or to purchase themselves. And the reason why I say resell is because a lot of the attendees are what's called the channel resellers of technology or other products. They're MSPs, managed service providers. Generally, they're more, you might call them a slightly more technical or technology oriented resellers. And also, believe it or not, a lot of carriers. 1 or 2 thousand carriers from your
Mm.
largest of the large Verizon, AT&T, all the way down to small regional carriers that are from South America to the Caribbean to Europe to all throughout the U.S. And it's going to be an exciting event, 3 days, February 13th through 15th in the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center. And we can't wait to host the buying community of B2B buyers.
It's fantastic. You have real buyers, sellers, OEM, service providers, MSPs, almost every category, which is really unique these days for an event like IT Expo, Super Show. And we have John Arnold here with us. John, many of you know John as an analyst, an advisor, industry insider into the future of work and communications collaboration. John, how are you?
Hey, doing great, Evan. Happy 2024. Happy to be live streaming with you guys, and it's good timing. We've got a lot to talk about, as Rich said. The IT Expo keeps getting bigger and better, and I'm losing track, Rich, but I can't think of too many shows that have had the continuity, right? That
Mm.
you started with your dad, and can count so many shows that have come and gone since then, but your show persists, and it shows that you've obviously found a market and you've kept it. And with Arturo here on the call, by the way, I think it's worth noting, being in South Florida, that most of the U.S. events, the industry shows, are tend to be U.S. focused when they're based in the U.S. But because of where you are, you draw a strong interest from the LATAM market. Everything south of Florida, Mexico, Central America, and of course South America, and it's a very big market. in an emerging market, and I know that they keep coming back because it's really the best place for them to go to get the latest and greatest. So I think it's really a testament to saying that you guys have stuck with the market and, like you say, Rich, kept evolving it, and that's what I love about it. And that's what brings someone like me into the picture, Evan, because I've been an independent analyst about 20 years, so I've been to most of those IT expos and uh, play different roles. But I've been also the chair of this future of work event. This is the 6th year, actually, since getting involved with this. And again, this sub event, Future Work Expo, keeps evolving as well. And I'm getting a little, I'm feeling a little concerned, Rich, because we keep calling it Future of Work 6 years running now. When is the future going to come? It should be here by now, right?
It's really interesting that this event is really focused. One of the reasons why we launched the event was because we wanted a forum where companies could learn about all the technology that they could use to allow their workforce to be anywhere and be productive. And for at least, so this is 1999. So for the first 10 or 15 years, the amount of pushback from corporations and CEOs who either said publicly or to me that companies really don't want their workers to work at home, they're not productive, they're not efficient, they've got to be in an office, they must be in an office. And lo and behold, it turned out that the event, the entire reason for this event to be here, not just IT Expo, which is more on the the broadband technical. I think of it more of the technology of the communications, and then I think the future of work is more of just the specific technologies that are focusing on making you productive as a team while you're hybrid. We were way ahead, and it turned out we were right that technology was there, the culture wasn't. So we culturally we crossed the threshold in 2020, 2021, and now most companies believe that there is a role for this new way of working. And we've got you and Arturo. I don't want to talk too much about the future of work. I'm going to leave it to you guys, but we're just really excited to have evolved and to have amazing thought leaders like the two of you associated with this show and helping us educate the next generation of leaders looking to buy and implement technology to make themselves more efficient and productive.
Hey, I just want to add one more thing to that, Rich, because having been through this for so many years, we've been through iterations of all in person, then going to all virtual, right, with COVID, and now we've come out of it. And that's another reason why these shows are bigger than ever, because people want to get back in person to have that real experience. And it's cool because we've done versions of this show virtual, we've done them hybrid, and we've done them in person. And nothing beats being in person for sure. And that's why I'm looking forward to this one. We're comfortable enough now to be back all in person for these things. And it's the best way to, I think, communicate and really learn what's going on.
Okay. And not to, I don't want to take too much of the time here, but just real quickly to that point, many of the attendees at the show tell me they cannot accomplish what they accomplish at a live event, whether it's IT Expo or any live event that has a substantial number of partner exhibitors, because what you're able to do at a live event is talk to one company that you're considering working with and then talk to the other partners that they have to actually put together the beginnings of an actual solution for your customer or for your own company, all at the same time in the same frame of mind while they're there to answer the questions for you. And then you're able to talk to like-minded other people who have implemented the same kind of solutions and who have had the same kind of problems and learn how they solve the problems. You can do this online, but to be able to do it, to figure out who you should be talking to, and then to see if you can trust those people, if they seem reputable, if they seem, like they're just agents of a company, are they real people, they're real customers. You really can't do that unless you're at a live event. And as much as we all love technology and, I'm working from home, I love to work from home and tech is awesome. That face-to-face, the few times a year that I'm going to these events has become infinitely more valuable for myself and for a lot of other people who attend them.
Yeah, great point, Rich. And let's go to Arturo, who's enticing us with his pool in the background. I really want to dive in and go for a swim now. For us northern climate people, we're extremely jealous. So, Arturo, maybe introduce yourself, a little bit about your background and bio, and what you're focused on at IT Expo.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Evan and Rich, for having me here and being the first time, sponsor here at the IT Expo here on behalf of HCL Tech. And, I've been in the industry about 19 years, but hence this is the future of work. I've been working 18 years from home. Out of those 18, the last 8 have been fully remote and the other 10 have been hybrid. So, there are certain roles out there that are fully, in a hybrid model. So hence the background. But yeah, 19 years of that, I've helped a lot of, from medium sized to the largest enterprise companies with a lot of different issues in their, HCM and HXM, transformation initiatives, around people. And definitely, post COVID, companies, as you all know, were forced to transform in 6 months faster than they had to in, a couple of years. So definitely, a lot of business models had evolved because of having to be remote to sustain your business, right? And part of what we're doing now at HCL Tech is really helping organizations, optimize all the different challenges and trends that are happening with remote work in the digital workplace. Because, unfortunately, folks, it's not going anywhere. I mean, all the indicators and the stats are showing that companies are more and more investing in the hybrid model. So it's kind of
Oh, totally.
here to stay.
Totally true. And we haven't met, so I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person, Arturo. So, Rich, I mean, there's so much on the agenda at IT Expo, and I'm going to share the website here in a second. How do you put together the event and the various threads that happen in parallel and all the activity around the sessions and workshops? Give us a peek behind the curtain, if you will, on
Sure.
pulling it off.
Sure. Well, we first have to try to figure out what are the new things that people need to learn about. Like, for example, we recently launched a generative AI Expo co-located event about a year and a half ago. And, actually it was maybe a month or two before the last event. And now this will be the second year and it's growing nicely and helping everyone understand how they can implement generative AI in their organization. But generally, what we do is we identify new areas that we believe are of interest to our core audience or to an adjacent audience, and then we determine if we have the expertise internally to have a successful event with us managing it, or whether we think it makes more sense for us to pull in a partner that, like someone like John, who is extremely knowledgeable and well respected, that we can work in partnership with and jointly produce one of these co-located events. And so in all, when you put all these co-located events together and you've got demo theaters inside of the exhibit hall, it becomes an educational experience that is immersive, it's all encompassing, and it really is difficult for a company to think of a technology that they might need, relatively speaking, within, the general universe of companies, not a niche need, but for the general things that companies need, this event will have everything for you, from cybersecurity to collaboration to the Internet of Things, and again, future of work, generative AI, etc. And so then we evaluate at the end of each event whether we think that we are adding value to the event with that co-located event. And if we don't think it's a valuable addition, then we reserve the right to not continue that event and maybe launch something else that's of more interest. So and then we listen to the feedback from the people that come to the show. I've heard people say this show is other shows that I go to are more like a department store, but when I come to this show, I feel like I'm in the mall. And it's a mall because you may, in a department store, you might have let's say an assortment of sneakers, but you have a real assortment of sneakers in a mall. Now, of course, I'm using an analogy, something that, or a metaphor for something that people don't go to anymore. But assuming people know what a mall is that are watching this, just picture that there's a physical place that you're going to buy everything. So that's really the goal, is to allow you to bring a team of people, make all your decisions all in Q1, and then implement your strategy and have a successful year.
Wonderful. And John, it's not just about the networking, which I love, and the engagement with the sponsors and exhibitors. It's also education, which is your focus. So, what's top of mind as far as some of the sessions you are creating, hosting at IT Expo?
Yeah, thanks for noting that, Evan. This track for future work is one of, I think, Rich, maybe 6 or 7 subs across the IT Expo experience under the big tent of the IT Expo show. And what's good about these sub events is that they're very kind of vertically focused, right? So as you say, it's education. So our tracks are purely they're panel sessions and solo discussions from sponsors. So you're there to learn. You're there to network too, Evan, right? And there are some demos, by the way. Arturo will be getting one of those, I know. And so this is a good way to get close up to the technology, but also to hear from people who are living it in the industry. So tracks like the future of work are just specifically on the topic. So across the 3 days, Evan, we have, I think it's 11 sessions, and we're covering a wide range of topics. Several of them have been constants over the past few years, but the nature of them keeps evolving. So we're looking at things like, how is the hybrid work model evolving? And that's a key one. Arturo is very involved there. I know you'll want to say a bit about that in a moment. Other things we're looking at, of course, AI is permeating everything now, right? So, for example, last year we did a session on generative AI, ChatGPT, and we had a completely full room. It was the best attended session we had
Mm.
because it was such a hot topic. Well, that's last year's. This year, the focus on AI is more about LLMs, large language models. So we have a dedicated session to that. Another really interesting one, when you start talking, Rich, more about the technologies, we have one on AR, VR, so augmented reality, virtual reality, and metaverse. So all of those immersive technologies, which are, of course, big in the consumer world, but haven't quite found their legs in the B2B space and the hybrid work environment. Excuse me, but it is coming. And there have been some developments in the past, probably 6 months, that are making it more real than ever. So that's going to be, I think, a very well attended topic for sure. We're going to be looking at collaboration technologies. Again, some of it is immersive, but a lot of it is just, how do you make that hybrid model work? And we're going to look at things like how the organization itself has to evolve and adapt. We always have a couple of sessions on customer experience and contact center. Agents who work in contact centers, they're employees too. They have future of work challenges just like anybody else who works in an office. So we're looking at that. We're also going to look at not so much HR, but kind of related to that is, the skills that people are going to need in the future, right? And we haven't done much of it recently, but the focus on, where does the education system have to go to train tomorrow's digital workers? I know, Arturo, you're going to speak a bit, I think, about the younger generations that are dominating the workforce now. And their needs are going to be very different from our analog generation of people who grew up, licking stamps, putting things in the mail, Rich, and, printing magazines and all that stuff, which the younger generation doesn't know much about. So, yeah, that's a sense of some of the things Evan will be talking about. And all our sessions are going to be discussions, so people are going to learn a lot, and we'll leave lots of room for feedback, as we always do. And that will give people ammunition to go from those events, from those sessions, on the show floor, Rich, right, which is where you want them, and look at what's on display, because the exhibit hall is huge, and I think it's one of the real kind of gems of what TMC's folks do really, really well with their event.
Well said, John. And Arturo, you're doing some sessions as well. What are you hoping to deliver in terms of content and insights? And what are you hoping to get out of it in terms of your own takeaways from the show?
Thank you, Evan. It's to John's point. Really, in my career, part of how you help organizations transform is by helping them build a business case, and that's through education and sharing them, industry trends and the challenges that we're seeing, right? And that's kind of the goal here is educating right now, your community and the community there, on what's happening with hybrid work. What are the top challenges that companies are facing, how it's evolving, how business models are changing also to things like shared services, and how companies are restructuring their orgs, right? So all that tied together, is really where the future of work is going, right? The digital workplace. Right now, companies have 4 generations in the workplace, 4. So it's tough to keep everybody happy, engaged, and have this universal blueprint, how to keep your entire workforce, you know, um, on the same goal, right, and path. It's very difficult when you have 4 generations. So all those challenges come together, and then when you talk about, what's happening in the workplace with the rise of contingent labor, and FTEs, right now that's been trending very heavily. So you almost got these large enterprises that 50% of their workforce is FTEs and the other 50 is contingent labor. So how do you have all that collaboration coming together, right? And at the end of the day, with remote challenges that are happening, right? So times are very challenging for leaders. There's a lot of, priorities that HR is focusing on how to have leaders more engaged and effective with their team, right? So it's evolving fast, because in less than 4 years, Gen Zs and millennials will be about 2/3 of the workforce. So you got to hurry. Lots to do.
Wow, now I feel old. What are you going to do? And Rich, I go to a lot of events, as do many here on the panel, and but a lot of them are, the big tech events. They're the Magnificent Seven. They're, the Amazon reInvent, Cisco events, Microsoft events, and those are great. But you're captive in that ecosystem, to that vendor. What I like about IT Expo is like discovery. You just meet so many interesting new partners, vendors, collaborators, OEMs that you maybe haven't seen at other shows. Talk about the diversity of the different
Thank you for pointing that out.
sponsors, etc.
It's a very, very good point. And look, the reality is that there are great companies that are in the tech world, and a lot of them have their own events. And within those ecosystems, they will provide you information that suits their partners or that highlights their partners. And so the reality is you're not going to get a truly objective view of the market, and there may be a disruptive technology that is at odds with the business model of the company that who's putting on the event. And so what do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to highlight that disruptive technology? The answer is no. And so one of the things about IT Expo that is, I'm going to say it's somewhat unique, is that we're not beholden to any one tech company, but more importantly, we're not dominated by a handful of large tech companies. I would say we are the most democratized tech show that is out there. And you could see that just from the booth sizes in the exhibit hall. We're very happy that we have a lot of small to medium booths, and that gives the attendees access to great technology from the startups all the way to the established companies. And they don't feel like the large companies don't drown out the small companies, which is what happens very often at some of these other events, where you might want to go and see everything, but you end up spending most of your time with the top 5 or 6 big booths in the front, and then you're done, and oops, I didn't see all the other stuff. That's not how it is at IT Expo. And I see the actual traffic flows at our show are different, meaning that people tend to go throughout the hall, and they get a better, more well-rounded experience because they see lots of different companies. And it's tough to explain that any better than what I just did. I probably wasn't very concise, but the goal of the event is to democratize technology in a way that every company, regardless of budget, regardless of how new they are, I don't care. I just want them to come to the show, exhibit their cool tech, help companies grow, and then come back to the show again and again, and keep growing their business and helping my other group of constituents, which are really the attendees. We're going to have somewhere between 300 to 400 exhibitors at the show. We're going to have somewhere between, well, including sponsors. There are a lot of sponsors who don't necessarily take booth space, for bag sponsorships and things like that. Then we're going to have somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 attendees at the show. So it's a fairly large event. I think of it as it's a good size event where there's enough depth and breadth, but it's not so big. Like, there's some shows in Europe, for example, where, there's 90 to 150,000 attendees, whatever those numbers are. When I go to those shows, I spend more of my time traveling between the booths than I do meeting. And that's not the goal of an event, because you have a limited amount of time out of the office, and ultimately you've got to maximize every second. That's how I feel when I leave the office. I'm sorry, when I leave my house. In the old days, it was the office. Arturo, you know what I mean.
That's so funny.
And so,
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hinting at Mobile World Congress. I may be there this year, and yeah, good luck getting a taxi or a restaurant or a hotel. And it's interesting because I mean, IT Expo over the last few years had so much like wireless content, 5G, and the Internet of Things. It's almost a mini Mobile World Congress in and of itself, which is
yeah,
for
that's
me
been my
really
goal for a couple of
fascinating.
years. I have to
Yeah,
be honest. Mobile World Congress show, and I don't want to take anything away from that show. It is an amazing show from this the
it's like
large
the
companies that
Olympics.
are there,
Yeah,
and the people you can see. But like you said, and I didn't want to specifically point them out, but I was spending 20 minutes between meetings.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you add that up, you have 6 meetings, it's 120 meetings, right? It's like 120 minutes. I'm sorry. So it just doesn't, by doing the
Yeah.
math.
But Barcelona is fun, but it's nothing like South Florida, Arturo, is it? You're a local. Give us a lay of the land. Where is IT Expo for those flying in from Brazil or from Canada? And I always found like a lot of the fun stuff is after hours. Like there's so many like networking events and parties, and Fort Lauderdale is like the great destination for
Yeah.
business and fun. Give us a snapshot of the South Florida these days.
Yeah, I mean, Fort Lauderdale's right in the middle, right? It's right in the middle of
Mhm.
Miami and West Palm. It's the center, so you can attract the north and southern folks. The drive isn't fun, as everybody knows. Traffic isn't light down here. 10 miles takes an hour sometimes. But yeah, no, I mean, where Rich has centered the IT Expo, it's great. It's in a great locale. It's around La Sola, so you can have a lot of fun in walking distance. So
Yeah, no, and it's amazing how the South Florida tech economy has come so far. There's so many,
mhm.
kind of local companies and innovations
Yep.
around the Southeast that you find
Yep.
that aren't in the
Mm.
tech press kind of every day.
Yep.
And Rich, you're a media company too. Maybe talk about the media side. You have lots of
Sure.
analysts, journalists, bloggers, influencers like myself there. Talk about how that's kind of an interesting angle on IT Expo.
Sure. It's we've got a media company, 10 to 20 million page views per year of people seeing the content. And we write about the latest in business to business technology. And typically the tech that we write about is reflected at our show. So it's, from communications all the way to contact center to AI to future of work. MSP is, it's something I didn't really talk about because it's not germane to the guests we have today. But the managed service provider portion of IT Expo, one of our co-located events is called MSP Expo. It's exploded with growth. And the
Mm,
reason why it's exploded with growth is because there's a couple of reasons, but companies rely on managed service providers, and they just don't have the budgets to have their own internal IT team if they're small to medium. But then on top of that, um, when COVID hit, and then post COVID, when the economic crisis or stock market pullback happened, companies realized they had to spend less money on just growing and more money on profitability. And it's very tough to establish sales offices throughout the world. It's expensive. So it makes more sense for you to use a managed service provider approach, which is reaching out to the leading companies in each portion of the world, trying to educate them to sell your products. And so one of our online properties is called MSP Today, and it's a fast growing newsletter that we publish just to that community. And, our goal is to 24/7 educate the B2B buyers from service providers to resellers to enterprise about just what's coming, what's next, what do you need to know, how do you run your business more efficiently, how do you use technology, like just in AI alone, generative AI alone, in the last 6 months, it is mind-boggling how much is happening in that subset of a subset of a subset of a space that can totally transform your productivity, efficiency, and profitability. How do
Yeah.
you keep up with it all if you
Mm.
don't go to one or more places a year and discuss with like-minded people, the best approaches? What makes the most sense for my type of company? I'm in real estate. How do I leverage generative AI to make my brokers more efficient? Or I'm in healthcare. How do I leverage generative AI so I can, better diagnose patient injuries or patient symptoms, things like that.
Mm.
It's bewildering, right? We're on the front lines of all this tech, and for someone whose primary job is not to be an expert on tech, the goal is you come a couple days to IT Expo, Tech Super Show, learn everything. Learn it in a couple days, spend the rest of the year implementing it, and then benefiting from your transformation, your continuous digital transformation into a more productive, efficient company.
Yeah.
Great pitch. And John, you cover the enterprise. You also cover SMEs. I think IT Expo is kind of more accessible to SMEs than many other shows. And I think SMEs, SMBs are kind of where the growth is these days. What say you?
Well, sure, sure. The vast majority of businesses do fall into that bucket. Excuse me, I'm just getting over COVID. The the sheer number of businesses makes it a huge market that everyone is chasing. But interestingly, I think we're all seeing this. Evan, when you mentioned like the Magnificent Seven, Amazons and Cisco's and Microsofts, their world is up market in the mid to
Hmm.
large enterprise space. Global 500 companies, that kind of thing. They are not as focused on the lower end of the market, certainly as they used to be. And there's plenty of players who can serve that market and are frankly better suited to serve those markets. And
Hmm.
so there's a very rich ecosystem there. And there are many industry events, as we all know, that do cater to that enterprise market. And this is one that does have a lot of enterprise focus, but the real strong suit is that, mid market and below. And these are the guys who need the most education and probably have the most kind of at stake because they're trying to make their first moves, into cloud, away from hardware, into the disruptive stuff like AI, figuring out what do we do with our contact center? How do we make customer
Hmm.
service better? They're struggling with some very fundamental things. And this is where the channel community plays such a big role to kind of be the middleman to help educate them. But coming to a show like this, they can see it, up close and in person, which is really great. And another way to help people get ready for that, Rich, you mentioned the publications. TMC has a big family of pubs and newsletters and other properties too that are, video and podcasts and stuff. For this event in particular, Future of Work, they do have their own newsletter called Future of Work News. I think it's Greg Tavares, Rich, who leads that. And I think they've got over 100,000 monthly subs. So if you want to kind of get a head start on what's coming for this particular event and what's happening in general in the future of workspace, you should sign up. Excuse me, for that newsletter to get a sense of what's coming. And they'll be covering our sessions off and on as well. So there'll be ongoing editorial coverage during and after the event of what's happening. So for those who don't come, and I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't come to Florida in February, um, you know, there are lots of ways to kind of tune in. But Rich, I think it's important for you to talk a bit about why you got to be there. Every show producer could say, "Oh, we'll give you a virtual, we'll have a live stream option for you," but that's a real killer for everything, right? Rich, I'd love to get your take on that because I think people need to understand why it's so much better to be there.
Productivity. Everything else that we've been talking about on this podcast is about productivity and how tomorrow's tools or these emerging tools are going to help us become more productive. Likewise, you cannot ingest the amount of information you need without going into a face-to-face environment if you want to do it quickly. And by quickly, I mean within a few days. You cannot, because if you once you get on the internet and you start searching and searching and searching, the amount of time that you are going to spend trying to figure out things, because you've got really no one to ask questions from, except for the salesperson potentially from the company that you reach out to. But now you've got just their answer, right? Wouldn't it be nice if online you were able to talk to the customers, the clients? Well, yeah, there are reviews. Okay, well, are the reviews real reviews, right? There's a rash of reviews online that we know now are AI generated and are just BS reviews, are not real. So you don't even know online. And I have this problem when I go on Amazon and I want to buy something. It's so difficult for me a lot of times to know if these reviews are real. Are they generated by real customers, or are they paid, or they, when you go to an event, you get to talk to actual customers, you get to ask them actual questions, and they're going to tell you things online that they may not want to put on the open internet. They may not want to upset the client, or they'll upset the customer, or upset the company they bought from, or whatever it is. They'll tell you, yeah, this is what we did. This is how long it took. They said it would take 3 months, but it took 6 months. But it was better than we expected in this way. It was cheaper than we expected. Those kinds of things, very, very difficult to get online. And then on top of that, you not only have that in the exhibit hall, but then you have networking events. And there are a few networking events where there's alcohol, and not that you need to have alcohol, but it loosens people up a bit, where they're more comfortable and less inhibited, and they're more open to discussing the reality of the technology they've implemented, the needs that they have. And then you can form these relationships, these ongoing relationships that are in person. And you can do it in a matter of hours, which is a couple day period, as opposed to needing potentially weeks or months to try to research the companies you need, and then see if you can track down their real customers, ask them real questions, see if they'll respond to you. Just come quickly, get it done in a couple days, go back to work and implement. That it makes the most sense, at least that from our perspective. And we've been educating thousands of people over 25 years. It makes sense to them. Again, the time of year, I mean, yeah, sure, it's Florida and it's February, it's nice. All of that makes a lot of sense. And I love it because I live in Connecticut. But the reality is it's budget season. It's Q1 is typically, and even if it's not when you budget, it's typically when companies are thinking about how they can improve their business. It's the beginning of the year. That's what, no matter what businesses I've been associated with, I've seen the beginning of the year is when companies think about changing. How do they improve? What do they do to get the company to the next level? And the amount of technology that's out there that is life-changing for a business today is literally 10 times more than it was a year ago, just because of AI alone. What's happening in AI is off the charts. And even though we have a generative AI expo, fine, but every one of our expos is being taken over by AI. AI is in everything now. So the question is, how do you integrate it? What is the best set of products you need? Because if all your products have AI, do they work together? Are they at odds with one another? Is there privacy? If you put your information in this one, is it going to end up here? Is it going to get leaked? Is there cybersecurity on this? Is there a guarantee? And these are just off the top of my head things that I'm thinking of as potential issues. If you spend a couple of days trying to map out your year, how are you going to grow? Think of all of those questions, all of those issues. Get them done in 2 days. Solve them. At least get most of it done. You may not answer all your questions, but meet the people that are important. Ask them the important questions. Talk to their customers, and so forth.
Well, in that mic drop moment, I want to thank you all for just spending some fun here on Friday, educating and sharing, spreading the good word about IT Expo, the super show coming up in February. Sign up. It's really worth your time and money and effort. And guys, looking forward to seeing you all there.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for viewing, everyone. Check out Rich on X and LinkedIn, and you put out amazing content daily. And of course, there's still time to sign up for the show. It's still time to exhibit and sponsor. So get on it, folks. Have a great weekend. Have a great Friday, everyone.